Alright, so welcome back, y'all. So, at the request of so many of you guys, today what I want to do is I want to go over my skinning machine setup. Now obviously if you're new to this, this is a skinning machine that I made. I made this thing, I want to say I made it in 2008. So this thing is old. It has skinned literally thousands and thousands of critters. And it's done great. So, you know, many of you guys have requested a video. Now I'm not going to build this thing per se, but I will go over and I'll give you guys several measurements that you can use to maybe further yourself along or potentially, you know, build this thing yourself. So anyway, this is kind of the second rendition. For those of you guys that have followed me for a number of years, you know that this is actually the second first shed that I've been in, right? So initially, my initial first shed, I had this thing where it was removable every year. I had a kind of an arm that came off of the top of this thing. I had a 12-volt winch that was set up, and the whole thing could be removed at the end of the season. This first shed, however, is just that. It is a first shed, so this thing is permanently mounted here. So there are a few changes that I've made to this machine, you know, moving into this particular first shed. Now, obviously, you know, this thing is not pretty by any means. And to be quite honest, if I was to do it over again, I would change a few things as far as cleaning it up. But just as far as the actual functionality of this machine, I wouldn't change anything. That's the reason that I haven't. So anyway, let's just jump right in here and I'll just walk you through simply what I've got here. And like I said, I'll pull a tape out and we'll give you guys just a few measurements. So to get started off right, this is nothing more than a it's an apparatus to hold the animal, and then you basically use a winch to pull them up like you would take off a sock, right? Basically adds a third hand, and it adds pressure while skinning. You know, any pressure that you can apply while skinning is an advantage, right? So that's essentially what this thing is. All right, so one of the biggest advantages to my skinning setup is this clamp system here. This is a very crucial part of how I skin. This particular clamp is able to hold the foot for the initial opening of the animal. You know, it doesn't mean I have to open them on a bench. I can do everything right here on the machine. And what it allows me to do is, by the height of this clamp, it allows me to work, you know, at a very comfortable level. I'm not bent over or anything else. So we will go over that. This particular one, it swivels out of the way, so where everything's all mounted on the machine. Definitely this is a must for me and the way I do things. So anyway, let me get a little closer view here and we'll just kind of walk over the machine, you know, from top to bottom basically. All right, so to start off with, up high there you can see the winch. Now I'll leave a link to my old machine below. It had a 12-volt winch that was hooked up to a battery. Whenever I moved to this particular shed, I ended up going with a 120. So this is just a cheap, I don't know how much that light's going to disturb you, but this is just a cheap 440-pound winch. It gets 440 pounds by the addition of that pulley. So really in this manner, I've got it set up to 220 with just a single cable. I find that's perfectly fine. Whenever I do skin deer or hang deer, I have to add that pulley, but I like the speed of just having this direct, so that's what I go with. So these are pretty cheap winches. I'll leave a link below. So we'll come down here, and this is the start of the machine. Obviously, I've cut this off because I actually have a shorter building here. If you guys remember my old machine, it had an arm that stuck out, a rebar arm, and you can actually still see the pulley that I left. That's how the old cable was actually ran through. Now I've got this winch mounted directly over the machine. So we'll come down here. So the base support of this machine is, it's road sign material. It's a 2x2 square is what it is. But whenever I built this machine like 12 years ago, I basically used scrap. I remember building this thing in like one night, and I didn't buy anything. I used all scrap that I had. So this is just 2x2 square tubing. If you wanted to buy a piece of square, 8-inch or 1/8 inch thick's fine. So this is the way I've got this clamp system here. You guys can see, obviously this thing has been well used, so I didn't clean it up for this. So this is 5/8 cold roll, and I've got it welded there. You can see the way it swivels. I've got a sleeve here. So this is a 10R clamp. Basically this clamp, this is what the clamp jaws look like. This is a smaller version, obviously, but that's what the clamp looks like there. I'll leave a link below to that style of clamp. We've got 1/4 inch or 3/4 ID black iron pipe here. You can see that I just welded on. That's what's used to hold the feet. All right, so that's the clamp system. Obviously, I can swing it out of the way after making my opening cuts. If you guys want to see this thing in action, I will definitely leave a link below. You guys can see where I use it. Moving down, we've got the gambrils. I'll show that once I get the camera steady here. So we'll move down to the base here. So the base is, this is pretty straightforward here. You can see I've just got 1x1 square tubing here. I've made a gusset that comes up to my swiveling clamp system here. So let me pull out the tape at this point here, and we'll give you a couple of measurements. Now, obviously, you don't need all this gusseting if you're mounting directly to the floor. You could mount feet on this thing, make it movable, however. But just because I know I'm going to get the question, so just for reference, let's see. I've got 18 inches off of the post to the center of the clamp system. So this is what's unique about this clamp system. Obviously, these are just vice grips. I recommend if you're doing this, spend the money, get a good vice grip. You're going to be, using it quite a bit. Same style, 3/4 ID black iron pipe for the clamp. I know a lot of guys use rebar, but this has worked for me. So, clamp system. Now this is where this machine adds some value. Obviously, you can see there with this thing swivels. We got 5/8 cold roll there as the top, but you can see I got this pin deal. So what I can do is I can pull that pin, and then I can replace that pin. It still swivels, and what that allows me is this allows me additional height whenever I'm pulling larger animals, the coyotes. I've basically given myself an extra foot of pull, right? That's the distance for that, and it makes it to where I can pull different critters. Now the reason that this is at a certain height, I will go over in just a second whenever we move cameras, but that's the initial setup here. Like I said, if I was ever to do this again, I would clean it up, but this was the very first rendition, and it worked. So anyway, move back up here. I've got the winch remote right here at eye level. You can see it works fine. And then I've got my different gambrils here for skinning. So let me get you guys set back up on the tripod here, and we'll go over a few more measurements and things. All right. All right, so that's the basic setup. So in case you guys are wondering, the whole advantage of having that drop down clamp system is, number one, it allows me the ability to skin coyotes. Now obviously I skin coons. That's the majority of what I put up. So the measurements that I've got off the ground are important to me, the fact that I'm not having to try to bend down to work around the head area or where all the knife work is happening. So I'll give you guys some reference. This may or may not help you. So just for reference, I am 6'1", and 6'1", I've got basically the jaws meeting where the clamp system is down here. The jaws meeting are at 23 inches off the ground. Okay, What that does is 23 inches off the ground clamped for the average run-of-the-mill coon. What that does, and you guys have seen me time and time again in the videos, that puts the head of that critter right here. So it's at a nice, comfortable working. It's not way up here where my arms are above my head. It's not way down here where I've got, you know, to be bending over. It's nice, comfortable. That's an important measurement for me whenever I'm doing all these numbers of coons, is to not have all this, you know, bending over, and just nice, comfortable level. And like I said, I can drop this thing down and, you know, skin bigger critters. The height of my clamp system here, and like I said, I'm 6'1", so you take that, I'm wanting that nice, comfortable level. The clamp itself is at, we're going to call that 65.5 inches off the ground. That's a nice, comfortable level. Obviously, you guys have seen me skin. You know, you put the foot in there, you make that nice opening cut. You're not bending over, reaching way up high. That's the system. I want to talk about my gambrels here because I get a lot of questions. So obviously, you know, good number, you guys are going to start out with this. This was my original gambrel. It's been modified because I bent it a couple of times pulling on some real heavy stuff, so I actually had to weld some angle on it. But this is your run-of-the-mill choker chain style of gambrel, right? Choker chain. Problem with this is it moves around a lot, and you got to go through the process all the time of hooking the foot. So way back when, this is the gambrel that I came up with for skinning coons. Obviously, like I said, that's the majority of what I do. It's definitely not the prettiest thing in the world, but as always, this was kind of the first rendition, and it worked, so I stuck with it. I've got some 5/8 cold roll down to some 1/4 inch, but the biggest thing is, guys, and I don't know if it's going to be washed out, but you can see I've got these spikes here, and what I'm able to do is, after I make that opening cut, I'm able to take, you know, and stick this through where the Achilles heel and the bone meet, and that creates a nice, you can see I've got this angle, that creates a nice wide open, you know, spread apart back legs of the coon where I can then work at the tail and then pull it. So obviously you need to have the separation, you know, you don't want it too close and you don't want it far away. So we'll give you that measurement right now. The measurement on the width of the bottom part of this machine is about 13 to 14 inches. We're going to call it, well, I'll close them. How about that? I'll close the clamps, and center to center, I'm at 12.5 inches. That is a pretty good number for the majority of what you skin. Both coons, coyotes, everything. I've never had a problem with that. And then the distance, if you want to go point to point, if you're looking to make this gambrel here, this is, I am at 9.5 inches. Pretty important here with this measurement. Obviously, you don't want to be too narrow and you don't want to be too wide. So I would look at this measurement, if pretty close, 9.5 inches. That also gives you a pretty good separation whenever you're pulling. You know, you don't have that, you know, don't want to have that too much of an hourglass shape. So this number here is pretty close to the number down low, 9.5 inches. So we've got, I've got a little system here. I got a little hook onto my machine. That's where the gambrel stays. Obviously, after the opening cut is made, the critter is then hooked into here. That's swung out of the way. Everything is at nice, nice usable levels. I then got a second gambrel here because this particular gambrel will not work on a coyote. It doesn't work too good. 9.5 inches is not wide enough. So I made this second gambrel. This is very similar to your traditional deer gambrel or something similar. Same thing. I think this is 1/2 inch cold roll, but the distance is 12.5 inches. So this matches the bottom almost exactly. So where, you know, you get that nice even pull whenever you're pulling coyotes. Let's see. So anyway, guys, that's pretty straightforward. I keep all this stuff together. Like I said, definitely probably not the best way to do it, but then again, I have skinned literally thousands of critters on this machine. Like I said, definitely not the prettiest thing in the world, but it works for me. And like I said, this is one of them situations where I'm not going to fix it until it's broke. If it does ever break, which it's all welded steel, then I'll redo it. But, you know, You know, for the bottom, I get a lot of questions. It's just cap welded with a piece of steel, you know, so that way it makes a swivel. You can obviously go full bore if you want, but I get so many questions on my skinning machine. I thought I'd make this video and hopefully answer, you know, a lot of you guys questions with machines, different things like that. Obviously, this is that 440 winch set up on the single cable, so you can see the speed of it. It works fine for me. I've got the winch mounted on a slide system up there that you guys could see, so whenever I bring deer in here, I can actually slide my winch out and I can work him out in the open rather than kind of in this confined skinning space. So kind of a dual purpose deal. If you guys watched my previous video way back when, I talked about where I had that rebar arm and I got a little bit of flex out of it. Now for new guys skinning with a winch, I do think that flex is really beneficial. It kind of acts as a shock spring. Obviously I've done this for so long that, you know, I kind of know what I'm looking for, pulling too tight, because obviously you can winch this stuff too tight. You know, after doing thousands and thousands of critters, it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, I'll leave a link to my initial skinning video. You guys can check it out. It's from way back in the day. And you can see what's changed. Not a lot has changed really, except for the winch. Like I said, this right here, guys, is super important to me. I guess I'll take credit for it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but it definitely is a huge benefit having that clamp system. So anyway, guys, we're going to cut this one off here. If you guys have any questions, definitely leave them below. I hope I covered this enough. Another thing, I get a lot of people wanting to know about a foot pedal. I've never really felt the need to have a foot pedal on this thing. My winch, I've got it right here, obviously. I've usually got my knife in my hand whenever I'm doing this. I can skin a coon out in 1:30 seconds, and I can do that pretty consistently, guys. There's not a lot of reason to have a foot pedal to go faster, as a lot of people tell me. So, anyway, to each their own on certain things. This is my particular setup. It may not work for you, but it definitely could give you certain ideas. Anyway, with that being said, guys, if you enjoyed this video, if you've made it this far in there, do me a favor. If you learned anything from it at all, hit that like button. It really does help. As always, if you got any questions, comments, whatever, leave them below. I love reading your guys' comments. With that, guys, I'm going to sign off for today, and I'll end it as always. I appreciate the view, guys, and we'll see y'all next time.